Hello, everyone, and welcome to another show of Reinforcement with Vic Williams. And just want to let everybody know today I am sporting my Girl Power T-shirt, which is a local organization helping what they call at-promise girls instead of at-risk girls, and supporting that program. It's a great program, and Girl Power rocks. Man, I am so excited and happy to have, I can call a friend, kind of like a colleague in the fight of human trafficking, and who is now the director of the Department of Homeland Security Center for Countering Human Trafficking, Mr. Cardell Morant. How you doing, Cardell?
I'm doing great, Vic. How are you?
Hey, man, I can't complain. Like we were saying, setting up, I must be doing something right. I got you here on my show, and man, I'm so honored that you were able to find time in your busy schedule to sit down with us and just let the people that follow me know what's happening at the center. As we get started, Cardell, I think I'll go back and let people know. I remember when we first met, we were agents together in Sac, Miami. I ended up coming back to Miami in 2005. Can you give us a little bit on what happened on your career that got you here?
Absolutely. And first of all, the honor is mine. I'm so proud of you. I've been watching your trajectory since you retired. And I know about your passion for the work while you're on the job. So I definitely appreciate this opportunity to talk about what the department is doing in the counter trafficking mission space. Always look for opportunities to address the public about what's going on. We met in Atlanta as a street agent back in the day. Before that, I was an agent at San Ysidro. After Atlanta, I went back to San Diego as a group supervisor, and then went to headquarters to run the cybercrime center. From there, went to be an assistant special agent in charge in Houston, and then a deputy special agent in charge in Baltimore, and then the special agent in charge for San Diego. And while I was there, the center was created, and I was asked to come in and run that. So that's how I ended up as the director for the DHS Center for Countering Human Trafficking, also known as the CCHT.
Yes, that's awesome, man. I've been following you, and you know how we always stay in touch with friends, and I heard about you getting the SAC position. I think I sent you a congratulations on that. I know you've been, family man and just, doing what you have to do. And I followed up on you and saw some of your speeches, and I know you have a passion for this, and I know you're loving what you're doing right now. When did you first started to deal with human trafficking? When did that first come on your radar? Because I know as agents, it really wasn't anything that we were talking about then. We were dealing with a lot of immigration issues because we went, in that early 2000s, we went from U.S. Customs, and that's when we merged Homeland Security to immigration, became ICE and Department of Homeland Security Investigations. When did human trafficking first pop on your radar in your career?
So I got to be honest with you, man. Human trafficking as a crime type came to my attention late in my career. I began working crimes of human exploitation, as you might remember, in Atlanta when I became a computer forensic agent, what we call a CFA, the folks who go in and examine the machine, right, and look for evidence. And all of that was related to child sexual exploitation and abuse material. And that work led me to continue to work in that mission space as it pertained to child sexual exploitation, which I think is a natural fit to human trafficking, which is also a crime of exploitation.
Right.
So really, once I was selected to be the director, as an ASAC, as a DSAC, I was managing groups who had investigations of human trafficking. And as an agency, there was training that was lacking. There were folks like yourself out there who were subject matter experts, but that was few and far between. And that's one of the things that the center is trying to to fix. Because as you might remember, in most offices, it was human smuggling and trafficking, human
Right.
smuggling and trafficking. They're always together, always being conflated, which does a disservice to both, really, especially in the human trafficking space.
Right.
So once I became the director of the center, that's really when I began to focus on human trafficking as a crime type. Now, I want to be clear, the agency had been focusing way before that, as you know. You've been
Yes.
working, but you were asking about me personally. So that's when I began to really focus on it.
What what's been your biggest surprise when you, because I know I had these aha moments, the last 8 years of my career, I was focused on human trafficking, and it really changed me as a human being. And that's why I speak so passionate about it, because I've always said if men knew what I knew, we can cut this in half probably just from awareness. Some of my aha moments was learning about trauma bonding. I remember we had a case of a young lady that we found out that she had slept with the trafficker, and we didn't understand all that at that time, and we kind of let the case go. And then as we continued to learn, we ended up arresting that guy on another case and brought her in. And then we started to see, wow, we are still learning about this process of, victims in this space. And I've always approached it from a cultural aspect, because I think culture is what leads us down a dark road of not really seeing the truth. What was kind of like a aha moment for you in this space that really got you passionate for what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And as you know, we're still working to understand the victimology that surrounds this particular crime type. For me, it's I'm just always inspired and in awe whenever I meet a survivor leader, survivor advocate, like the resilience of the folks who've been recovered from their trafficking situation and are now advocates for others who are still out there. Just the way they're willing to engage and share their stories, like that's something that I hadn't seen in any of the other missions that Homeland Security investigation deals with. And it's a very, very passionate group, as I'm sure you've met some of them, and we've done a couple of roundtables as the department, me with the secretary, and they're not shy, and nor should they be. They're very vocal, they're very passionate. They definitely tell us what we're getting wrong, and that's one of the things. When you're talking about an aha moment, it's that resilience and just understanding that there was things we could do better as a law enforcement agency and entity when we encountered victims, and how we dealt with them, not just on the scene, but as we move through the investigation. So these are all things that the center is focused on, and the department is focused on. We have a victim-centered, trauma-informed approach. You and I have talked about that. And part of that being trauma-informed is these types of engagements with survivor leaders.
Now, dude, I am so happy to see and where, you cannot move forward in these investigations and understanding this without having a survivor inform us on how, the real lived experience to help us learn what they've gone through, how to better approach them, how to better deal with the situation. You definitely always need some type of survivor in the room when we're coming up with policies and things like that to address this issue. I'm also happy to see where, the center has taken an approach on training where every department in Homeland Security gets some type of human trafficking training. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So the center is comprised, it's the first unified intercomponent center in this mission space, and it's comprised of 16 components. So one of our missions is to train our workforce, because as I said earlier, I felt like that's something that was lacking, particularly as it pertains to human trafficking. So we train anyone across the department who has an interest, from admin staff to investigators to operators, across the board. We also conduct training around the world. We conduct training for other state and locals. We have a lot of tribal engagement. So that's very important to me because historically, as you remember from your days in government, when they're looking for cuts, and they're always looking for cuts every year, what's the first to go? It's training, right? Like there are always some savings in that. So, with the pandemic and utilizing technology, we've become more creative. We can do more virtual training, which, saves some money. But we're getting back to some more in-person things. But yes, training is a big thing for the center and for me personally.
How long you been how long has the center been going, and how long are you the first director to run the center?
I'm the first permanent director. The center was created in October 2020. I arrived in August of 2021. So I just passed my 2-year mark in this position.
Congratulations, my man. Congratulations. And so being the first director, can you tell us what have been some of the major accomplishments? Everything you just mentioned is major in my opinion, because, even as an agent, I've always felt that every discipline that we enforce, whether it was gangs, drugs, any type of crime that Homeland Security was in charge of, I felt like everybody needed training because at some point, I always say if there's money in men, there's something, and especially in the legal world, there's something going on. What would you say have been some of the biggest accomplishments or hurdles as a director of this new center that you've had to get through getting the center in the public eye and moving forward?
Well, opportunities like this definitely go a long way to getting the word out there about the center, that we exist. There's still a lot of people who don't even know that we exist. So that was a huge challenge coming into this role. It was a brand new center. In government, we do a lot of things well, but one of the things we don't do well is we get a good idea, we stand it up, and we don't put the proper resources with it.
Right.
So the center was no different. When it stood up, it had lots of support. And in this mission, one of the things that, going back to awe-inspiring moments, the bipartisan support on the Hill has been extraordinary. But, as a challenge, stepping into this role, just properly staffing the center and getting the resources that it needs. So 2 years later, we're finally at that point where we're finally getting people on board. We've got the positions, they're coming in. Things are looking really, really solid. For a long time, we were doing, more with less, which was fine. But now we'll be able to do so much more and do so many things better. A major accomplishment was the passage of the Countering Human Trafficking Act of 2021, which passed in December 2022, which codified the CCHT and set up a baseline staffing level of 45 personnel, permanent personnel, as well as a budget of $14 million, a one-time drop of $14 million. So that shows the commitment of the president, Congress, to this mission space. So there were a lot of people involved across the department in getting that across the finish line, but that was a huge, huge thing to get that. And so now the center is here to stay. It's in law. It's not going anywhere.
That's amazing, man. And I can't think of anybody better to run it than you. I hear your passion. I know you're a good agent. I remember the work you did when we worked together. So I don't say that just because you're a friend. I say that because I know you've been a hard working and you've been accomplishing a lot with this agency. I was looking at some of the strategy stuff, and I think, in preparation for the show, we had a quick little talk. And when the first laws of human trafficking came about in the year of 2000, and those laws address protection, prevention, and prosecution. Those were the 3 Ps. Later along came the 4th P, which is partnership, because we know nobody fights this fight alone. What can an organization like mine or the community, how does the center, reach out to organizations of people that are in this fight to kind of bring us all together and to keep us informed and so that, we're stronger in numbers. Is the center approaching the partnership in that way, or what can you tell us about the fourth P, partnership, and how the center sees it?
So that fourth P is extremely important. A lot of what we do, we wouldn't be successful without our partners. And we do have a partner and engagement section at the CCHT. We have a senior advisor for partnership and engagement. So we're very focused on that, not only working with the current people that we know about, but also identifying new agencies, new entities, new NGOs, CSOs that we can work with. There's no shortage of folks in this mission space. So entities like yourself, we've known each other for a long time. So all you had to do was reach out to me, and, but for others who might not have that connection,
right.
Certainly they can reach out to the department. You have my information. Feel free to share that with your audience. And we invite folks to come out to the CCHT and sit down for a CCHT 101. We'll talk about ways that we can collaborate. They're not like formal partnerships, because as a government agency, we have to be careful about that. But we're happy to work with as many people as we can in this mission space, because we can't do it alone. I mean, the goal is to end human trafficking, right?
Yes.
And that takes, this vast army of not just entities like the CCHT, but folks like yourself to accomplish that.
Well, I don't have to say again what my passion is for this work. And I know training is everything. I know awareness is everything. At Quest of Freedom, our goal is to, bring awareness to this from a cultural aspect, because it's, in our opinion, it's culture that fed us here, that got us here, and it's culture that continued to, support this crime. And it's just a lack of knowledge. One of the things that you guys are doing, I know a lot of people talk about sex trafficking and labor trafficking, which I believe the stats were a long time ago, and I believe they're still the highest. 60 to 70% of all trafficking in the world is labor trafficking. What are you guys doing to really educate the community and focus on labor?
So again, that all goes to the outreach and the training that we do, not just internally, but externally. As you just quoted, I mean, there are 27 million people involved in trafficking. 80% of those are being subjected to forced labor, the other 20% to sex trafficking. So it's the crime that's in plain sight. We often train about how, you may see a situation and may not understand what it is you're seeing, but that person is being subjected to labor trafficking. So helping get the word out there on the identifiers, the indicators of human trafficking. It all goes to training. And We're not asking for your audience. We don't want anybody to be vigilantes or law enforcement. No need to engage, just report. There's a tip line, call 911 when you see something, even if you're not sure. It's better to go ahead and report that and let law enforcement do the rest.
Yeah, I always said that I know you guys, and even when I was an agent, I'd rather show up and not have a trafficking situation than to someone not report it and then later on find out that it is a trafficking situation. And it's just a process. I've been working at this for 13 years now, and I'm still learning. So, it's just a process that we're constantly being. And I honestly believe this is something that we can resolve, because even in my approach, when I do presentations, everything that we do, Cardell, it comes back to us. The more that we are informed as individuals, the more we can address this issue. And I don't know if you ever used this as a stat or if you ever saw this, but I always say, because there's still experts out there that believe drugs is the number one crime in the world. And I don't believe that. I think human trafficking is the number one crime in the world. And I use this statistic that if you own a cell phone, you have the privileges of buying clothes and food, you have a minimum of 40 to 60 slaves working for you. I don't know if you ever heard that, but I've seen.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in this, I just, and I believe that, because we know, with our phones, then we've heard some of the stuff about the cobalt mines that are happening in the Congo that goes into our phones and batteries. We know about the dark side of chocolate. If you and I used to tell people, when I used to do my presentations back in the day, I used to say, hey, now that you know what you're gonna do about it, but now I actually kind of give people something to do, and I let them know that if you eat chocolate or you drink coffee, just go online and do a fair trade of your product to make sure that it's fair traded. And then, over the time, if we see fair trade products up and other products down, you can actually look at yourself and go, I've accomplished something. I've done something about this issue. And I think that's just where we all are. The more we know, the better we can address it. I know one of the things I asked you to do is let's talk about some of the stats. I was so impressed about the 2022 stats that you guys have. So you want to give us some numbers on that, please?
So as you know, I'm with HSI. As I mentioned before, there's 16 DHS components. So I'll speak to HSI, or Homeland Security Investigation stats. In FY22, over 1,300 investigations were opened, and more than 3,600 individuals were arrested. More than 760 trafficking victims were offered critical assistance. So those are people, I'm giving it in numbers, but those numbers represent a person, right?
Yes.
Either the trafficker or the victim who was recovered. So those are, really good stats. I suspect, I haven't seen the FY23 stats, but I suspect that HSI stats will only improve. As you know, we're very good at a lot of things. The agency is. So I suspect there's no shortage of dedication across the workforce. And again, the more people we train on how to work these investigations, and they're all eager. Every single office is committed. The director, everyone's committed to eradicating human trafficking. So the more training we do, the better they'll be able to handle these cases. And it's not just training that we're doing for our workforce. We also coordinate with DOJ. So the Human Trafficking and Prosecutions Unit are also training their workforce. We work hand in hand so that if there are challenges or anything that comes up, they're able to go and explain to their federal prosecutors, what's going on, try and get over any roadblocks in the case. So working together, those numbers are only going to get better.
Those stats are impressive because those are Homeland Security, the HSI stats only. That's what you guys are doing. So that's not even, I know that you guys work with other, state and local people, but those are your stats generated. So it's not even talking about cases that you don't know about, which is, I'm sure, across the country. When I was the coordinator of the human trafficking coordinator for the state of Georgia, we just saw numbers, increasing, and it all happened based on the more law enforcement was informed and trained, the better, the numbers, because now we recognize, and we break a lot of those cultural barriers. And closing out, because I know you're a busy man, and anything that we miss, anything that you will, anything coming in the future with Homeland Security and addressing this issue that we should know about, or, what other things that, we should be doing as a community. But real quick before we go there, I like to always educate our people on processing, because I know there's a lot of stuff happening with foreigners that come to our country. And as you know, I always say the majority of people that are sex trafficked in America are probably American citizens. But when it comes to labor trafficking, a lot of those people are coming from other countries because they address their issues of documents and whatnot that's used against them. And I try to educate, people that may come across this information. If you're a victim of human trafficking, the processes, and you're from another country, because we want people to come forward. I'm working with a case right now. A lot of people just afraid to come forward because they don't know. But if you're a victim of human trafficking and you come forward, and as Homeland Security recognizing that this person is from another country. Can you go over what's that process from continuing presence, T visas, those processes that these rights that victims may have if they're from another country and they're victimized in the United States as a human trafficking victim? What are some of those processes that make them feel comfortable about coming forward and letting us know?
So as I mentioned before, we have a victim-centered, trauma-informed approach. Our motto at the center is victims first. And that's not, U.S. citizen victims. That's victims, anyone, U.S. citizen, non-citizen alike. We manage the continued presence program, which provides a temporary immigration designation for a non-citizen to participate in their case as it's moving forward. Citizenship and Immigration Services manages the T and U visa program. They're part of the center. They're one of those 16 components. So one of the things that can happen is if there's a stovepipe or something in the process, because as I mentioned before, we deal with a lot of NGOs and advocates. They sometimes reach out and say, hey, this person hasn't heard about, there are no updates on their continued presence, or, they haven't gotten their EAD card, or, So it's my job, our job at the center, to break down all those silos and keep that process moving, keep everything flowing smoothly. We have the Blue campaign. They're the public outreach and engagement. So one of the things, and all of their material is translated into, I don't even know the exact number of languages, but multiple languages. And they're published all over the place. We just had a recent success where a person, a victim of trafficking, who didn't realize they were a victim of trafficking, saw one of the flyers. Rhett was able to read it and realized, oh, I'm a victim of trafficking, feigned an illness so that they could be taken to a doctor. And again, going back to the training, that doctor that they ended up seeing had been trained by our Blue campaign. So they understood what to do with this person. So what we want folks to understand, citizens and non-citizens alike, is that we're here to deal with you as the victim, and that's the approach that we're taking. We know that a tactic that traffickers use is to make you afraid of law enforcement, especially if you're a non-citizen. They may prey upon your immigration status. You don't need to fear us as law enforcement, Homeland Security Investigations, and other law enforcement. Come forward, allow us to help you.
And I think part of that law still stands, is that if you're a victim in the country and there's fear that your immediate family in your country is being threatened, do we still have that law that we will bring those family members here to take away that fear in order so we can address the victim's issue and possibly prosecute the people who are victimizing them?
I'm not exactly sure, so I don't want to put out any bad information on that.
Okay. Lastly, because I let you go here, if somebody's a victim, what should they do? If they have information or a victim, who should they contact? What should they do?
Contact law enforcement. There's a tip line number. There are a couple of tip line numbers, but that's the best thing to do. Contact law enforcement. Let someone else know. Just make it known, and we will take it from there.
I think is it 1-866 DHS ICE is the number for you guys?
That's one of them, yes.
And then I know there's the Polaris number, which I always find that so easy to say, and that's 888-3737-888 is the national number. Just on some issues, some cases that I've been working, I always give them the ICE hotline, and I give them the national hotline to report, because usually the national hotline also provides some services for victims. My friend Cardell, again, any last words you want to say before we let you go?
No, this was a pleasure, man. I appreciate the opportunity. Happy to do this again anytime. Thanks so much for the invitation.
Well,
good to see you still fighting the fight, man. So proud of you.
Well, yeah, I'm here, man. And, like we always said, over phone conversations, anything you need from me, I'm here for you. So thank you again for taking the time out to join us today. Ladies and gentlemen, if I had one of those things that we could clap, I would clap. We just, finished a great interview and insight on the Department of Homeland Security Center for Countering Human Trafficking, the director, Cardell Morant. Thank you, sir, and have a blessed day.
Thank you.